Chapter 1. Justinian Arcadius Valorous Valder. Until his 20th birthday, Marcus had lived his life as any young man. He was trying to get a good-paying job with enough free time to enjoy his hobbies. Like a growing majority of young men, he was uninterested in marriage because of the worry of being cheated on, divorced, or being baby-trapped. These were just his paranoia, which his family always tried to convince him otherwise. His mother often tried to set him up with girls she thought he would like, but Marcus didn't care. They eventually gave up on the idea of grandchildren since Marcus had checked out of relationships because of the terrible experiences other men had gone through. Instead, he focused on his body to always be at his peak and his studies to strive for the best job. Because of his efforts, he got into an Ivy League school, but on his 20th birthday, his life changed for the worse in the eyes of others. For the better in his own eyes, as he had been the house he was renting. He had been sitting on the couch reading The Master of Mankind, War in the Webway. He had gotten into Warhammer only a year ago, but it quickly became one of his favorite verses. As he read the novel, he heard a terrifying sound. He looked up from his book as he heard the sound of a plane coming down. What the fuck? He ran to the window and looked up at the sky, seeing a giant cargo plane with a face charging at him. I sky time be *TCH. Marcus' mouth went slack as he stared at the mechanical face glaring at him. Emperor protects my ass. That was all he knew as the plane crashed into his house and directly killing him. Marcus' thoughts blanked out, but they came back not long after his gory death. When his eyes opened, he was sitting down on a comfy couch across from a woman. He didn't stare long at her as he first touched his face. He reached down to check if his balls were still there, and they were. Okay, I am alive. The woman seemed to frown. Excuse me. Marcus needed more time to process things. Can you give me a minute? I'm having a mental breakdown right now. Never having been treated like this, the women sputtered a little as Marcus breathed in and out. A fucking Thomas plane with a face killed me. Me of all people. Aren't they supposed to take the biggest losers? Why me when my life was set to greatness? He sighed as he looked back at the woman. Let me guess, Ice Sky. She nodded with a forced smile. Yes, I can see you are not happy. His face fell into a very angry look. Happy my ass. You could have picked any fat loser who thought he deserved the world. I like my life. I worked out every day. I took care of myself. I had friends. I was in an Ivy League school. I had family. I had a life. What made you gods think I was the best candidate? Never having faced this reaction, the goddess sputtered. But this is a blessing. You are being reincarnated to live your life to the fullest. I already was living my life to the fullest. What can you possibly offer me that I didn't have? The goddess now started to feel like they did pick the wrong guy. Strength. He sighed. I guess. Let me guess. I can't be sent back to Earth. She shook her head, which just made Marcus groan. Fucking hell. What is done is done. How does this work? You spin a wheel or random? Now feeling bad for taking him, the goddess shook her head. No, I can see that we picked the wrong candidate, but since we can't send you back, you have 3 wishes. I can't tell you where you're going, so pick well. Fuck it. I will pick the powers I want. I want the body of an Adeptus Custodes with soul, bonded shadow keeper armor, and Gurdian spear. That is 1 wish, by the way. Now, this isn't a wish, but a request. Can you remove the ingrained loyalty to the Emperor? The goddess nodded. I can and I shall. Your next 2 wishes. Simple. I want the boosted gear and divine dividing. Integrate them into the Auramite power armor. Seamlessly make the boosted gear fuse into the left gauntlet of and make the divine dividing perfectly bonded to the armor. Hearing his words, the goddess realized why he chose what he did. The Adeptus Custodes each were works of art. Demigods, everyone with the blood of the Emperor of Mankind himself flowing through them. Unlike space marines, who had excess organs to the point where they seemed unsymmetrical. Each Custodes was perfect, with bodies that did not age, and instincts bordering on supernatural, resistance to the powers of the warp and blanks. I see the logic. A body to endure the extreme stress of housing 2 heavenly dragons and their strengths. The ability to double your already transcendent strength near endlessly and steal the strength from your foes that so much lay a hand on you. You picked well. Now that you have picked, I shall inform you of your destination. The DC universe. Justinian pondered on this, because DC was no walk in the park. However, if Batman could create a suit of armor that could let him face Darkseid for a time, why couldn't he with his unique abilities? That is fine with me. Whatever you do, do not send me to Gotham, because I will not be playing nice with Batman. Instead, send me to Central City. Flash is far more understanding than brawny Bruce Wayne. The goddess accepted that simple request. Sure, I can understand that. Is there anything else? Marcus had just one request. If I'm to be a Custodes, I need a new name. Will you rename me, goddess? The goddess paused as she could sense that Marcus wanted to leave his old life behind. If he could not return, he wanted a new name to bind him. I will. From this day, your name shall be Justinian Arcadius Valorous Valder. He laughed as she just took a bunch of famous Custodes and gave them their names. Custodes are supposed to get more names as they commit heroic deeds. I guess facing down a sentient plane was heroic to deserve that many names. Farewell, goddess. Do you want to know my name? No. She recoiled as Marcus was sent through a bright golden portal. As he flew, his human body was broke to the standards of the Adeptus Custodes. Marcus had been an above-average specimen as he was 6 feet 4 inches and well-trained. However, how could a baseline human like Marcus even come close to the perfect warriors of the Custodes? His body was broken down to primordial ooze as his soul and body were rebuilt cell by cell and molecule. He felt none of this, as every part of what made him human was improved upon. Perfect the power of biomancy and psychic manipulation at the atomic level, worked upon at his core genetics. This process happened in moments, and Marcus was no more. In his place, Justinian Arcadius Valorous Valder emerged. 12 feet tall, covered in the finest shadow keeper's suit of auramite. The boosted gear gauntlet built perfectly into the left gauntlet, as if it always belonged. Bright red, with purple gems rather than green. The soul of the heavenly dragon Draig is placed within with none of the limitations placed by God. On his back, a pair of purple crystalline wings perfectly bonded to the back of the armor. Just like the perfected boosted gear, the soul of Albion was placed inside with its many limitations and seals removed. Justinian opened his golden eyes as his mind returned. As his memories and personality slotted back into his new brain and soul, he leapt through the golden portal. He did so high above Central City, falling slightly limp. His new, enhanced mind ran through every second he had been alive in a few moments. He felt his soul-bonded shadow, keeper's suit, roar to life. The boosted gear and divine dividing were now his to command. So this is how the 10,000 think. He stopped falling as he started to fly with the purple divine dividing. It matched his shadow keeper power armor, and so did the giant spear in his hands. He spun it around with incredible instinctive skill. I can get used to this. He understood how to fly with the divine dividing, and he used it to land. He did so in the middle of the city center where everyone could see him. He meant everyone as every man, woman, and child was staring at him. It was hard not to when a 12-foot demigod in power armor with purple wings landed in the middle of the day. Justinian sent the divine dividing back to his soul seamlessly as they got in the way. For now, though, he looked at a random woman next to him. What is the current date? She snapped out her thoughts and answered. October 22nd, 2001. He hummed, as when he died it had been 2024. It appears I've been sent back 39,000 years. As he walked off, he placed his massive guardian spear on his shoulder. He was purposely making a mess as he wanted to be spotted. It did not take long before a golden flash that was running through the city center stopped right next to him. When the flash did so, he was only half of his height. Yo, big guy. Justinian looked down, but did not stop walking. Do you require something, Speedster? I was going to ask you that. You did jump out of a golden portal high in the sky, and now here you are walking through the city. I require nothing. I have asked what I needed to know from a helpful, primitive female. Barry felt that was harsh. Primitive, affirmative Speedster. Though I could use your name, since there was an ancient remembrance of you, in particular in the Imperial Museum in the 999th year of the 41st millennium. I refer to you as primitive, since I see vehicles known as cars. They still burn fossil fuels, yes. Barry paused as his mind processed every word that Justinian said. Wait, did you say 999th year of the 41st millennium? You are from that far in the future. Affirmative. However, you as a speedster must know by now that the future is ever in flux. There is no set future, and my future is just one of many possible ones. Mine is a very dark future, Badash. Before he finished, Barry yelled out, "Don't say it." Justinian wanted to laugh, but he kept his cool. He was still wearing his helmet as they walked. My apologies, Speedster. I almost forgot that you heroes keep your identities sectet. I shall keep it and the rest of your league members to myself. Barry now asked the question he wanted to know. Okay, if that is the case, how did you get here? I and forces of Ordo Cronus were attempting to stop the activation of an illegal Xenos time machine. A madman wanted to return to the beginning of creation and undo all that was to be. I slayed him and destroyed his machine, but it appears I was sent to the far primitive past. You would not have the ability to run me through time to get back to my time, would you? Barry shook his head. No, I do not. Justinian nodded to himself. In that case, I understand. While I am not supposed to intervene in the events of the past, I much rather my future not happen. It is quite bleak for humanity. Barry looked up at Justinian, curious. Ow! Sentient men of iron turning on mankind. Rouge psychers, demon incursions, Xenos picking at the scattered remains of humanity's empire. Humans warring against themselves for the golden age of technology tech. An age of superstition and stagnation. Every word that Justinian just said came from 40K, but it would be his future, his backstory, and it worked perfectly. Barry was now looking up at Justinian in horror. That bad, huh? Are you even human? I was born on Holy Terra, speedster to a noble house. I was given over to the Imperial Palace when I turned 5 standard Terran months. I underwent grueling genetic engineering to leave my feebleness behind. What you see now is the peak of humanity's gene crafting. A member of the 10,000 Legio Custodes, the Praetorians of Holy Terra. Barry didn't speak as they kept walking, but when he did so, he asked one question. Holy Terra? That Earth? Affirmative. It has not been called that since the golden age of technology in the 20th millennium. When humanity's intergalactic empire fell, techno-barbarian warlords waged war for control of Terra. They turned the birthplace of humanity into an irradiated shell. It's been many millennia since anyone uttered the name Earth. Justinian let just a tiny bit of emotion slip, which worked far better on Barry than it would Batman. I feel for you. Couldn't be easy living in that time, but you wish to prevent it? Yes. If I can stop what broke humanity's empire, I can ensure mankind does not devolve into the state it is in the 41st millennium. Maybe I can even prevent the Xenoxides. You have been saying Xeno this whole time. That mean alien? Affirmative. In the 41st millennium, any Xenos are to be exterminated on sight, except a few vassals of mankind. Following the events of Old Night, former allies enslaved humanity's scattered worlds, and when we of the Imperium reunited them, we made sure to slaughter any and all Xenos that endangered mankind. What about Superman? He is a Xeno... Chapter 2, Mars. As Justinian flew through the atmosphere, his suit, which had all the functions the regular Custodes plate armor, did begin to feed him information. Unlike the Astartes Black Kappa race, Custodes integrated with their plate in a much more sophisticated manner. Every Custodes had sinew links, fiber bundles, and synapse jacks that interfaced perfectly to the individual Custodes. As large as he was, his organs were all the same as a regular human, just so efficient that he did not require extra organs or gene seed. As Konstantin Valder put it, for all practical purposes, they became one unit, a seamless amalgam of gene-bred muscle and lab-wrought nanotechnology. It was true as Justinian could feel that his armor was more of a second skin. He could move unencumbered and operate even in the void of space. His helmet along with his suit fed him constant information on atmospheric pressure, temperature, and different sensory equipment. What made it all better was that this was a suit bound to his soul, so he didn't have to risk someone taking it. On another note, Now that he was here high in the atmosphere, he decided to speak to his two silent companions. While we are here, introductions are in order. I am Justinian, formerly known as Marcus. Nice to meet you too. The first to speak was Drake. Likewise, Justinian, I would like to say we were kind of confused about what just happened. Our souls were just ripped out of the heaven system before we were going to be sent out to have new hosts. Then we find ourselves in much better sacred gears because they lack any of the seals or limitations placed on them by God. I think the White One will agree with me that finding out that in your world we were just a light novel is world-shattering. Honestly, it might be for the best because I can see in your memories. You, Red One, would have been known as the Grabbin' Dragon, and I would have been known as the But Dragon. He shivered as he said that which made Justinian chuckle. Trust me, we won't be having any of those foolish titles. Now, I know that you have some kind of rivalry going on, but that can't continue if we are to share the same headspace. Let us have a truce for our sakes because this reality is beyond dangerous. Fair. What do you say, White One? Truce. Terse. I have been reading through your memories, and I can safely say this reality is going to be fun. Justinian grinned behind his helmet. We will get along swimmingly, my friends. Now then, to test this out, he focused on his left gauntlet, which came equipped with a Lastrum Stormbolter. As he flew, he analyzed the new boosted gear, which melded seamlessly into the black and purple armor he wore. It went from a large, bulky gauntlet to a streamlined, Custodes-worthy power fist. The purple gems in it also looked rather beautiful. How are the new gears? Better. My soul is not chained down, and I feel freer than ever. All my powers are for you to use, since you're traveling through space, so use this chance to train it. Right then, go EAS dash. Before he finished, Justinian ignored him. Boost, 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 boost. Without the pesky 10-second restriction placed on the gear, he went for it. Boosting 9 times meant that his power was doubled up to 24 times his original power. If a weakling like Issei Hayadu could handle this kind of power, to him, it was seamless. As he felt the dragon aura of Drake surge into his body, he felt all his attributes increase rapidly. He grinned as he transferred this power to the divine, dividing, causing him to blast through space like a comet. Never mind, I think you could go further. This is plenty. Val in his first appearance moved so fast that he was described as moving at light speed. That was not a major feat in DC, but he was moving faster than any human vessel had any hope to move. As he broke free of the atmosphere, he saw the League Tower, but he ignored it. He continued on his flight path to Mars. Albion started to feel that maybe their new host was going to be the best they ever had. If all the seals are removed, then this means that you can use even the powers we lost. If you mean Drake's blazing inferno of scorching flames and your reduced venom, then I believe so. They will be crucial to our continued existence in this reality with their soul-destroying abilities. We seal them away for a reason, Justinian. That doesn't sound like something a dragon should say, Drake. Here I will hold nothing back against anyone. Both Drake and Albion went quiet as he flew through space. At the blinding speeds he was flying, he managed to reach Mars in only 12 hours. Thanks to his perfect gene-forged body, holding this kind of power didn't even stress him out. One of his plans was to draw out the strength of the Emperor's blood that was used to make every Custodes. If he could have the psychic might of the Emperor of mankind on top of his sacred gears, he would become a big player plenty quickly. For now, though, it was better to just get a feel for his abilities. When he arrived on the Red Planet, he flew through the atmosphere, causing the outside of his armor to start burning on re-entry. Though the aura might not only endured the heat, but even began to disperse it as he entered the thin Martian atmosphere. When he entered, he flew around the planet until he saw Olympus Mons, the biggest mountain in the solar system. He dived down toward the mountain, and at the last possible second, he flew up to slow his momentum. He released the power he had gathered and stabbed his spear into the ground. The Auramite spear blade dragged on Justinian and used the divine dividing to thrust against his momentum, which caused him to drag along to a stop. He breathed out as he dragged his guardian spear out of the rock and hefted it onto his shoulder. Welcome to Mars. So this is Mars? I always wondered what kind of foes there were in space, but I never was blessed with such a foe. They will be commonplace in this universe. Albion, you are rather quiet. Overwhelmed. No, I'm just impressed at how quickly you got a hang of the boosted gear. Don't compare a baseline human to a Legio Custodes. The difference between a demigod hero and a regular human is sky high. I can see that a normal host of the boosted gear would struggle to boost more than 5 times, but you made 10 look easy. Do you feel any pain? None. Any discomfort I might have felt vanished as my natural regeneration adapted. Now, then, between the both of you, there are several abilities to master. The boost, penetrate, and Drake's flames. From you, there is the divide, reflect, and your venom. Each ability by itself is powerful, but with someone to use it like me, we are in some new extremes. He was killed by a kryptonite-fueled nuclear bomb at the turn of the 21st century. Okay, what the hell is wrong with the future you came from? I am from the worst future. Barry couldn't believe it. Since you are here, will you come to the Justice League? No, my name is Justinian. I shall be seeing you in 12 weeks. The divine dividing appeared on his back, and he flew off into the sky, leaving Barry stuck looking up at him. Since his armor was fully enclosed and soul-bound, he chose to fly away from Earth. Barry saw how Justinian's form kept getting smaller, smaller, and smaller until he could not see him. 41st Millennium Tech, is that advanced, huh? I better let the League know about him, though he doesn't seem to be evil. Barry ran off as he could not fly. As for Justinian, he kept flying higher into the atmosphere. Custodes could stay perfectly still without sleep or food for a century. Since he was encased in a soul-bound armor, he was going to take a few weeks to get a feel for his new abilities on Mars. He could go all out there, and he would have white Martians to test himself out with. He could barely restrain his newfound warrior pride to test himself in the crucible of war. In that case, where will you start? I will begin with the boosted gear powers, since they are the best without an opponent. When I get a good feel for them, I will move on to the divine dividing, though the ability to fly is extremely useful. My question is, what will happen with the balance breaker? Neither Drake nor Albion knew what would happen, but it had to be powerful. Just one balance breaker granted extreme levels of power. Justinian knew that when he did find his balance breaker, he would be an absolute beast. Well then, I did lie about the 12 weeks to Barry. I will stay as long as I need, so let us begin. This will be my base of operations. If any white Martians show up, I will treat them as I do any Xenos, with brutal efficiency. Drake did bring up one concern. What about food? My body can subsist without substance for over a century. If I need to eat, I shall consume one of the Martians. Now, time to train. He took a deep breath behind his helmet and began to boost up again. Boost. He did it only once, as he wanted to feel the power. When he boosted, he felt dragon aura surge into his body, and with it power. His strength, speed, reflexes, senses, and instincts all doubled. He gripped his spear, and he began to picture he was surrounded by thousands of green skins. Justinian began to move his body with the ingrained instinct of a member of a Legio Custodes. Strangely enough, by boosting, he felt the supernatural sixth sense that Custodes were blessed with also increase. It made him feel as if he was right there in the middle of a waft of orcs. As his guardian spear swung through the air, the sound of the wind being sliced apart sounded over and over. In his mind, he cleaved the heads off orcs, removed limbs, and avoided their weapons. He weaved and dodged against non-existent enemies that his mind conjured up. He kept this up for 5 minutes as he replaced the orcs in his mind with Tyranids. 6 Custodes had wiped out over 1 million Tyranids, and 1 even survived. That was what he pictured, his glorious last stand against uncountable Tyranid bioforms. As he continued to battle against the endless swarm of Tyranids, he boosted again. Boost! Now he was 4 times as powerful, which also meant his sixth sense grew more pronounced. He didn't notice it before, but he knew what this was. This was the psychic imprint left by the Emperor in each of his Custodes. He had removed the ability for the Custodes to be psychers because of the dangers it brought. However, the warp was not a thing here. The boosted gear was increasing the power of this imprint, which started to make Justinian feel he was locked in battle against a hive fleet. He knew it was fake, but his instinct was feeding his mind with what he wanted to see. Draig and Albion watched on as the way he fought got cleaner, more refined, faster, and more deadly. He went from fighting on raw instinct to fighting, as he described, the apex of humanity, but at the 10-minute mark, he did it again. Boost. Now, 8 times stronger, faster, and with the boost to his sixth sense, he started to feel the battle even more real. He dodged a swing of a hive tyrant before he pointed his guardian spear at the face of the non-existent creature. He pulled the trigger and fired a bolt shell formed of dragon aura. It flew through the air, but in his mind, it blew up the head of the bioform and everything behind it. Justinian, how do you feel? Amazing. He did a black flip to avoid the charge of a giant Carnifex and smashed his boot into the ground. His natural Custodes strength, when multiplied by 8, caused a massive fissure to smash into the mountain. He grinned as he continued his training. Boost. Now 16 times mightier, he moved like a supernatural purple blur. No baseline human would ever be able to face in direct battle. The best aspect of his soulbound armor is that as he boosted, its functions were also boosted. By now, his sixth sense was starting to burn as the power flowed through his body. All of his cells were surging with draconic power, and he continued his training the entire day. He got a pattern, and he fought for 30 minutes to get a feel for the strength before boosting. In the end, even with all his innate power, he had to stop boosting after 13. By that point, his power had been increased to 8,192 times his base ability. At that point, he was a giant pillar of emerald energy as he started to fly with the divine dividing as he fought a war in his mind. Each swing of his guardian spear caused blades of dragon aura to slice through the air. He moved faster than ever, and each of his punches, kicks, and moves caused the red planet's surface to form giant fissures. The biggest thing was his supernatural sixth sense, which was burning like a star. He roared as his mind started to hurt, so he released his power. Dragon Blaster. He punched into the sky and launched a giant crimson asteroid of dragon aura into space. He started to pant as all his energy was spent, causing him to fall onto his ass. How was that? He took deep recovery breaths, which made Draig impressed. Okay, you're going to be a monster. Makes me want to see what you will achieve in the balance breaker. For now, he wiped out and fell on his back as he allowed his body to recover from the stress he put it through. Though the biggest thing was his sixth sense that was making his mind burn like a motherfucker. Maybe he had broken the restrictions the Emperor placed on the Custodes. For now, he closed his eyes as he needed to be prepared for the white Martians coming to mess with him. Chapter 3. White Martians. Justinian Power Armor. As Justinian laid flat to recover from the stress of using the boosted gear, he felt something. It was an instinct given to him by his sixth sense that he was being watched. Not just that, but he felt the feeling of psychic abilities near him. Psychers of 40K had a multitude of powers, and psychic abilities were the basic stuff. Not to alarm you, but can you fight after pushing yourself that hard? He smiled behind his helmet. Does a dragon have scales? I'm not hurt, just de-stressing. I'm good to go for these white Martians. You worried? This is your first real fight. No. He opened his golden eyes and kicked off the ground without his arms to dodge a white Martian burrowing from under him. The divine dividing emerged from his back as he leapt away. He gripped his spear as another jumped out from behind him. As it did so, he spun around and activated the molecular disruption field on his guardian spear and rapidly boosted. Boost, 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 boost. Since the spear, like his armor and sacred gears, were bound to his soul, and boosting caused the field on the spear to become 32 times more powerful. The crackling blue energy field surged like lightning as he moved with transhuman speed. He swung his spear and sliced off the Martian's forearm. White Martians could phase through solid matter, but disruption fields were made for this. It gave a roar of pain, but only for a moment. His follow-up swing sliced off its head, and in the third, he cleaved it in half. He did not remain in one spot, and kept away as another leapt at him from the ground. This one seemed particularly enraged as he had murdered its mate. He saw its eyes glow before it blasted red heat vision at him. He smirked as he held his right hand out, palm open, catching the heat rays. He walked forward through the beam and began to absorb it. Divide, 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 divide. He absorbed all of the energy used in the heat rays and gathered it in his gauntlet. When he reached the Martian, he lunged out and grabbed its neck. Since he was still 36 times stronger than his base self, he lifted the Martian off the ground. What is yours is mine. Divide, 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 divide. He drained all of the psychic energy from the white Martian, and when that ran out, he drained its vitality. By the 10th divide, the white Martian crumbled into dust. Albion spoke up at that. That was brutal, but this psychic energy is weird. It's not mana, but worming. Wonder when you will unlock your psychic potential. So do I. At that moment, he felt a Martian burrowing under the ground. It pushed its arms out of the ground and tried to grab his legs. Before it could do that, he spun his spear, and with the disruption field still activated, he stabbed through the ground and the creature's skull. He ripped his spear out of the ground and pushed his arm down to drag out the corpse. That was going to be his food, but he could not let his guard down. Martians were deadly because they could match Kryptonians. He managed to kill these because weren't elites. Plus, his abilities were hard counter to Martians. Suddenly, he sensed an attempted attack on his mind. At least several at the same time. From the ground, another 6 emerged, and they all roared at him. Unlucky for them, Custodes were warded against Psychers, and that ability also got boosted. He raised his left hand and channeled dragon aura and psychic energy. He stole from the white Martian into his last rumor storm bolter. He began to fire his storm bolter, creating solid shells from a fusion of dragon aura and psychic energy. The Martians roared and scattered to avoid the deadly shells. They began to run to avoid as massive crimson explosions erupted where the shells landed. He took a deep breath, linked his senses to his suit, and calculated the trajectory in nanoseconds. Bordering on precognition, he knew where the Martians would be. He fired 5 times, launching 2 bolts each time. 5 Martians received 2 bolts to the skull each. The giant explosions destroyed massive parts of their bodies, killing them. This left one that was running in terror. He gripped his guardian spear, and he hurled it through the air like a javelin. The Auramite spear struck the giant white Martian through the gut. Bullseye! He started to walk toward the Martian as that was not a lethal wound. It roared in pain as it grabbed the spear lodged in its guts. It froze in terror when Justinian stood over it. He grabbed his spear and stepped on its face. Identify yourself, Martian. Why have you attacked me? The Martian sputtered out distorted words in Martian. He didn't understand, so he placed more pressure on his foot. In English, Spanish, Italian, Japanese, or Russian. I don't know any other language. In English, it spoke slow, garbled words. My name is Aaron Namin Hrik. Our home under here. Justinian hummed as he ripped his spear out of its gut. He then stabbed it through the Martian's skull, killing it. I better go before more show up. Through the divine dividing, he vented his energy to return to normal. He bent down and grabbed the Martian by the leg. He started to drag it away before grabbing the other he pulled out of the ground. He lifted it onto his shoulder, but to not take up room, he sent his guardian spear to his soul. He started to walk away with his prey into the red sands. As he did so, he asked Dre a question. Does dragon fire need oxygen to burn? No, just make some and it will burn regardless. Though, I don't want to say you are an incredible warrior for a newbie. I have to agree, you, a regular human, became a demigod super soldier in hours. This emperor of mankind seems even more amazing. Trust me, he is an asshole. Drake checked those memories and understood. Still amazing. Justinian chuckled as he continued on his journey through the Red Planet. He wanted to get away from the battlefield before he settled down to eat. Using the divine dividing, he flew into the air with his 2 corpses. He flew away for an hour to give himself enough space from them. After an hour, he landed on a random stretch of red ground. This is as good as it will get. He tossed his corpses down and turned around. He opened his left hand before boosting up. Boost, boost, boost. That was enough, so he collected that dragon aura into his left palm and created a dragon fireball. He launched it at the ground, and he saw how it started to burn the red sand as fuel. Even the carbon dioxide was combusting, causing the fire to grow larger. He smirked as he walked over to the corpse he stabbed through the head. He kneeled over it and reached over to his left side, where he pulled out his Custodes knife, called a Misericordes. They were made of oromite and could cut through almost anything. Using the golden knife, which was more of a short sword, he started to butcher his prey. With brutal efficiency, he cut off the head and each of the limbs. He then cut the body open and pulled out all the organs. Since Astartes could consume anything, he gave them the benefit of the doubt. He chopped off the hands and cut the skin off the arm. He then started to cut the flesh off the bones. He then sharpened the arm bone and stabbed the meat on it. He reached up and removed his helmet. When he took a breath of the Martian atmosphere, he scowled as it was foul. Doesn't matter. I can breathe. His lungs processed oxygen from carbon dioxide so efficiently he might as well have been on Earth. He stabbed the bone into the ground to roast the meat. He repeated this for the other arm, and the legs using the bones to stab the meat through. As the meat cooked, he started to smell the scent. Not bad, not good. I have eaten worse. Enjoy. Agreed. I'd given anything to even have a piece of that. While his food cooked, he began to butcher the chest as he removed the ribs and other body parts. Pretty soon, he had perfectly butchered an entire white Martian the size of him. By then, the leg and arm meat were cooked. He grabbed a bone skewer and bit down on a piece of arm. As he chewed, he frowned. Yuck. Tastes like rubber and like eating a tire. He didn't stop eating as his teeth made short work of the flesh. He reminded himself that he wanted to have plenty of energy, so he had to eat. He didn't need to eat, but he could. While he ate his meal, back on Earth, Barry called a meeting with the founding members of the Justice League. These included Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Hal Jordan, Shazam, Dr. Fate, Hawkgirl, Aquaman, Cyborg, and of course Barry himself. Once everyone was at the Watchtower, he started. I called this meeting because earlier today I had a weird encounter. I was running through Central City and I saw a golden portal in the sky. As I ran over, I saw a giant man jump out. He was covered in dark purple armor, and he was at least twice my height. Not to toot my own horn, but I am 6 feet 1 inch, and this guy made me look tiny. I ran next to him as he started just walking through the town of Central City. I was going to ask him some questions, but he beat me to it. Said he was from the 41st millennium, and he got sent back in time from an alternative future. Hearing his words, Dr. Fate was curious. The future is ever in flux, and there are more futures than there are grains of sand. Did he say how he was sent back to the 21st century? Barry said word for word what Justinian told him. He said that he and members of an Ordo Chronos were stopping a time terrorist who built a time machine. When he destroyed the machine, he got sent back to our time. As I talked to him, he gave me bits and pieces of his future. Humanity does not do well in his time. Said he was a Custodes, a genetic engineered super soldier of Holy Terra. He spoke of sentient men of iron, demon incursions, aliens tearing at humanity's scattered empire, and so much more. Even he said that he came from the worst future. Batman hummed as he pushed a button on his wrist. This caused a projection of Justinian as he was flying out of Earth, taken by the Watchtower. When everyone looked at Justinian, they wondered how he had ever been human. Wonder Woman even said so. Genetic engineering turned a man into this. Barry nodded. He said he was born in a Terran noble house, and he was given to the Imperial Palace at 5 Terran months. There he was genetically engineered into this. Batman squinted his eyes. What mankind is willing to do to survive? Did he say where he flew off to? Barry turned to Martian Manhunter. Mars. He said he would return in 12 weeks. I wanted to say that he knows all of us. There were sketches in his time of us. He almost let my identity slip. John clenched his fists. Mars is dangerous. The white Martians have taken it over. Superman looked into the void, gazing at distant Mars. I could fly over to make sure he lives. Barry, you are good at reading the characters of people. Did he seem like a threat? Barry shook his head. No, he seemed like a paladin, a hero. And I don't mean a hero like us. I mean the heroes of ancient myth. He seemed mythical, more than human, but he took pride in his human root. Superman stood up. In that case, I will stop by to see if he can look after himself. I will also speak to him myself. John stood up, followed by Diana. The Martian gripped his fist tight. If you're going, take me. Clark didn't think that was a good idea. John, why dash? This isn't up for discussion. Diana shot a look at Superman, who sighed. All right then. Diana, you're going? Yes, I want to see this paladin for myself. She placed a hand on her sword because, as an Amazon, warriors interested her. Cyborg stood up. I will get your ship ready. With that, 3 founding members of the JLA would fly to Mars. Justinian would meet 3 more besides Barry. For now, he tried to enjoy his meal of white Martians. Chapter 4. Sparring Match with a Fellow Demigod. Justinian leisurely continued his feast of white Martian flesh, which was as bland and tasteless as rhubarb. However, it was not for the taste he was eating, but for the nutrients. His advanced digestive system drew out all the nutrients from each piece of flesh in mere moments. Once he ate all the flesh off an arm skewer, he stabbed the organs through it and roasted those. While those began to roast, he moved on to the leg meat, which was tough, sinewy, and like eating well-done steak. For the next hour, he continued to feast on the first Martian. With how advanced his digestive system was, the flesh dissolved the moment it touched the acid. Its nutrients was then absorbed in moments. While he enjoyed his feast, a space vessel of the Justice League left the watchtower with an extra passenger. Batman had tagged along, which meant that now Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter were all traveling to March. As the ship made its trip, Batman began to use the many Wayne satellites stationed over Mars to pinpoint where Justinian was. While he worked, John tried to calm his nerves. He had left his planet as one of the last members of his race, if not the last. The White Martians had taken Mars for themselves, and they only stayed because of the Justice League. They had invaded Earth a year ago, and they had been repelled, but the scars were still fresh. Batman, have you found him? Bruce paused when his satellites brought up a video feed of the Martian surface. It was a recent video of when he had landed on Mars on Olympus Mons. No, but I found where he landed. Let me see. Diana looked over his shoulder to get a good look at Justinian. When she did so, she looked him up and down. His armor was a shade of purple, so dark it was almost black. It was tech from the far future. Incredible craftsmanship. Bruce sped the video forward and ended up seeing when he started his training. This got the attention of everyone as his strength kept rising when he boosted. By the time he reached the apex of his power, he was moving so fast that Bruce's satellites couldn't see him. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter did, and even they had to say his martial prowess was borderline godlike. This was just Justinian after a few hours, which showed the skill of the older Custodes. They even captured when he launched the Titanic Dragon shot into the void of space. Bruce, being himself, squinted his eyes. He is dangerous. An attack of that level could cause absolute devastation if launched at Earth. Superman had a counter. It could, but I'm no different. If I do not limit my power on Earth, I could destroy the planet. I could see how he purposely fired into the void of space and not at the planet. Remember, we are not here to capture him, but to talk. Bruce relented as they kept watching the satellite recoding. They saw after his training he laid down, but then they saw the White Martian attack. Diana's eyes were locked on Justinian as he began to battle the White Martians. They were deadly foes, but seeing the way he battled them made it seem that he had faced worse. Incredible spear technique. He moves like the wind and with the force of the mountain. Bruce frowned at the sight of the carnage. Before he could say a thing, Martian Manhunt himself smiled. Anyone who can fight the White Martians is an ally. Those monsters who only desire war met their end as warriors. They found glory in their deaths, glory they did not deserve. This was going to be an argument, so they sped up the ship. In the meantime, Bruce finally tracked down Justinian's location, so they set a course. Justinian by then had consumed the entirety of the first Martian with only bones, skin, and entrails remaining. He moved on to the next one, as he could keep eating without stopping. As long as he stocked up on nutrients, he would not need to eat for up to 100 years. When he finished, he laid down on the Martian ground and closed his eyes. Custodes did not need sleep, so he just enjoyed the feeling of resting after a meal. He didn't move for hours, but at the 12-hour mark, his sixth sense began to warn him of something. After boosting several times, it had been forced to grow, so he was alarmed. He opened his golden eyes and rose off the ground. He stood over his burning fire and summoned his guardian spear. He stabbed it into the ground in front of him, and he looked into the sky at the descending ship. Even without his helmet, he could see the Justice League insignia. Who do they send? He waited patiently with both his hands placed on the butt of his spear. When the ship landed in front of him, he saw the back doors open into a ramp. When it opened, he saw who had come, and he was honestly not surprised. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Martian Manhunter. Isn't this a party? When the JLA members got a look at him, they saw that he was even bigger in person than Barry described. He made all of them look like children. Diana was the first to come out of the ship while wearing a breathing mask. She was durable enough to only need that, while Superman also had the same breathing mask. Batman's suit was made to be able to operate in a vacuum, while Martian Manhunter was a Martian. Diana walked forward until she was 6 feet away from him. Neither spoke as the two warrior demigods stared the other down. He gripped the spear tighter while she tensed her body for a fight. This standoff was respected by her fellow Justice League members because of her Amazon heritage. The standoff was stopped when Justinian grinned. "I see the ancient myths were not exaggerated about you, Wonder Woman." "No, Diana." She relaxed at that, but did not approach. She first looked at the flame burning on the ground, which should not be possible. The pile of bones next to Justinian, which coincided with White Martian, explained why he had a fire. "Welcome, Custodes, to the 21st century. That is what you are, yes." "Correct. I am Justinian Arcadius Valoris Valder of the 10,000 Legio Custodes of Holy Terra. Since you are not attacking me, may I assume your mission is peaceful?" Superman said as such. "It is. When Barry spoke of you and said you flew off to Mars, we were worried you would end up dead to the Martians." Justinian pulled his guardian spear out of the ground and looked at his campfire. He kneeled and placed his hand in the fire. "Divide?" Albion did not say that out loud, as that was just for him to know. He drew out the energy of the flames and extinguished them. When he stood up, he placed his spear on his shoulder. "I am fine, Kal-El. White Martians are Xenos that we of Legio Custodes exterminate where they rise up." That didn't sound right to Batman. "Genocide? Only those that endanger mankind. Bruce Wayne. I know plenty of you in particular. The failed hero." Bruce clenched his fist. "Failed? Joker, as you know him, would have been exterminated on sight. Why you keep him alive is beyond us, so we see you as a failure. A man just as insane as Joker." Superman raised his hands to placate things. "Now hold on. Things are different in this time, and killing someone dash." Justinian interrupted. "Joker is not a person Kryptonian. He's an animal that should be taken behind a court and shot, burned and forgotten. If there is nothing else, I shall take my leave." He turned around and started to walk away, but Diana called him back. "I agree with you, Custodes. Joker is a madman and should be put down by the blade. I told you the same, Bruce." This was why Batman and Diana never got along. She was too quick to want to apply the death penalty. "Diana, this is not Themyscira or the 41st millennium, murder dash." She raised a hand to him, not wanting to listen more. "Save it. Justinian, while you are here, would you do me the honor of sparring with me?" She drew her sword and grabbed her shield from her back. Hearing that, he grinned as he placed his helmet back on his head. He spun his guardian spear and silently started to power up. "Ready, guys? Let's go. I am ready. Boost, 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 boost." As he started to double his power, Diana began to feel her instincts roar awake. His aura as a fighter doubled against itself 9 times, and now she felt like she was staring at Titan. As for Justinian, he was becoming used to the sea of power the boosted gear granted him. Already a massive purple aura roared off his body, pushing Batman back. Superman and Martian Manhunter both now felt that if all Custodes were like this, they were no doubt demigods all. They were a legion made up of heroes. As for Justinian, he was grinning behind his helmet, as this amount of power was not stressing him out. His body had adapted to the stress of the boosted gear incredibly easily. One more. Boost. When Diana felt his power double, again her eyes felt like they were going to pop from her skull. He went from feeling like a powerful warrior to an eye of a singularity as the strength surging from him was off the charts. Just being around it made Bruce grit his teeth from the sheer force. Diana, though, smirked herself as both of them moved. The Martian soil burst as the two demigods charged at each other. Both of them began a rapid exchange of blows. They did not stay in the same spot because he was so much bigger than she was. His spear was almost as tall as he was and ungodly heavy. Despite her weapons being forged by Hephaestus, the Auramite was holding its own. Since it was bound to his soul, any damage it may receive healed itself. And if he boosted his strength, even the amount of soul energy flowing through his gear increased. Justinian with both hands began to swing, slice, stab, and smash his spear against her sword and shield. Each swing caused the ground to figure, but she parried his spear with her shield. Ray then wasted time to bring back his spear. He threw out a kick at her. She bent backwards to avoid, and in that same move, he smashed down with his elbow. Diana raised her sword arm and blocked with her bracelet. Despite the amount of strength in that blow, she endured the elbow strike. She was thrown to the ground through, and he used that to lunge down and grab her leg. Divide. Suddenly, she felt her strength be halved, which was odd. He lifted her up, and he tossed her like a rag. Since her strength was given to her by the Greek gods, he had just taken a small amount of it. It could recover on its own, but Diana didn't like the feeling of it. You can double your strength and divide your foes? Can all Custodes do this? No, I am unique. I am the warden and guardian of the souls of two dragons. I am a Praetorian of Terra. I hope you do not consider this unfair. Diana shook her head. No, I do not. Boost. He boosted again, causing his strength to now be 2,084 times its base state. The purple aura surged like a pillar off of him. He charged at Diana and swung his guardian spear down at her. She caught his swing with her shield, and she felt all that overwhelming power smash against her. She grit her teeth as her strength has been halved. Her blessing Demeter made her as strong as the earth, but when she wasn't on earth, it was weaker. Even worse, he had halved her power, so she was weaker than before. This resulted in her being unharmed by the blow, but she got launched backward like a weightless doll. Justinian watched as she flew through the air before she forced herself to stop by throwing her sword into the ground and grabbing on with her lasso of truth. Justinian exhaled as he vented his power through the divine dividing. He placed his spear on his shoulder before turning to Superman. She is strong. That she is, though your power to double your strength and divide your foes is terrifying. Does it have a limit? As much as my body can endure. Batman took that information, but the more he used the boosted gear, the limit was rising more and more. After that, Diana ran back with a seemingly happy expression. That was amazing. You are a mighty warrior. As are you, Diana. If you were male, you would have been inducted into the Custodes. That made her less happy. So a woman can't join? No. The biomancy and genetic engineering are only compatible with the male chromosome. Women in the 41st millennium serve in the Imperial Guard, Sisters of Battle. They can receive genetic engineering, but not those of Legio Custodes. Sisters of Battle, I would like to hear more of these women. He nodded. A story for another time, Diana. I enjoyed our spar very much. He gave a warrior salute, and he walked off into the red sands. As he was moving, Superman called out to him, Justinian, will you join the Justice League? I shall refrain, but this does not mean we cannot work together. Keep in touch. I won't leave Mara for a few months. That was all he said as he took off into the sky with the divine dividing. As he flew off, Diana was stuck staring at his quickly shrinking silhouette. Superman smirked as it seemed that she was enthralled. He catches your eye? She turned to him as if he asked a stupid question. A warrior of such skill, prowess, and will? Yes, he did. Though, I do wonder if he can bear offspring. That was the question, because even Justinian did not know if he was still infertile like the Emperor designed. Though, since they discovered that he could more than handle himself, the JLA members returned to their ship to report their findings. Not knowing it, Justinian had quickly won the interest of Wonder Woman. Would he act on it if he knew? Could he? Who knows?